So, how to make a good Resident Evil movie. Now, I've been a fan of Resident Evil for as long as I can remember. I did not play the first few Resident Evil games. I had a GameCube and I got to playing Resident Evil 4 there. And it was the greatest thing I ever saw. Had in my hands. I played that game to death, is an understatement. I've played all the difficulties, unlocked all the weapons, and really the story from a third person perspective, and all the different, from the set design to the games, the characters, the story, so much mystery. And that seems to be gone. Now, I have an idea for a Resident Evil movie that would probably kick ass. But to be honest, I'm gonna talk about some other things first. What made the movies for me great and bad at the same time. What made the video games great and what made them lesser than compared to Resident Evil 4. Now, this is going to be a long fucking discussion, so I hope you're with me until then. Now, you might already be wondering, like, bro, why the fuck did you say the movies were great? They were garbage. Not entirely. Because one thing that S.W. Anderson did very well, in my personal opinion, going back from like Resident Evil 4 to wanting to know more about the franchise and really playing all the different games that came before, waiting for Resident Evil 5, hoping it would one day come out on the Nintendo Wii, which it never did. To my sad surprise. And also the movies. Because until Resident Evil Extinction, I had no real problem with the direction that S.W. Anderson went. Because honestly, when it comes to video game adaptations, a lot of those directors, they either don't know their source material, which he did, and a lot of them just copy paste, and this is where it gets really important. A lot of people just copy paste the important shit of the video game. I believe that some directors don't look past the video game trailers and just write shit as they make it up along. And he could have easily done that, but chose not to. He chose to make pretty much his own kind of telling with the Resident Evil franchises, which not only that I find bold, but I found very compelling that he did that. And which makes my idea for the Resident Evil franchise a little bit more interesting, I believe. Which I will tell you what it is. But coming back to the movies, until Resident Evil Extinction, I really loved the direction he was going into. It wasn't by no means great, but it wasn't bad. I mean, I could tell you, that guy had me in the theaters for every Resident Evil movie that came during that time period. Because I saw the first one on TV. Granted, it was in Spanish. The second one I rented, and that really got me hooked into the movies because it was kind of Resident Evil 2 and 3 while simultaneously not being it, and it really was an interesting take. Plus the character of Alice, believe it or not, I still have a huge crush on Milla Jovovich. She was one of my celebrity crushes, one of my many celebrity crushes. That had to be added. So which got me rooting for her to be in more of these movies. And then I found out the director actually married her. Shit, nah, just kidding. And But after that, I saw that a lot of things that I had gripes with about video game movies start to present themselves in the Resident Evil movies that came after, which was exactly what I hoped he wouldn't do, which copy paste a lot of shit from the video games just onto the movie, and that was it. Like, for example, when Wesker was introduced, very. Bro, understand that Albert Wesker is in my opinion, he's the Darth Vader of video gaming. So much mystery, so much just allure, and really mesmerizing because you didn't know anything about the fucker. You didn't know anything about this guy. Nowadays, all of your villains, they're pretty much flushed out there, and a lot of these guys that have gripes about movies that are coming out now is exactly what I was saying years ago, that a lot of these villains and a lot of these characters, they're just very plain right now and pretty much explained away. Whereas with Albert Wesker, really had to dig to find out anything about this character. I mean, bro, I went to blogs, I went through old files, I went through collectibles trying to figure out more about this guy. You wanted to know more about this guy because he was a villain shrouded in mystery. And that pretty much got killed in not only the video game Resident Evil 5, but also, by the way, Albert Wesker is still alive and Epstein didn't kill himself. That's all I'm saying, bro. That's pretty much all I'm saying. Albert Wesker is still alive. But yeah, they pretty much did Albert Wesker in the movies a lot dirtier, and don't even get me started on the rest of the characters like Leon Kennedy, Ada Wong. I have no gripes against the actors. I'm not one of those that type of fanboys, but I will call a product shit when I see it shit, you know. And some of these might be future colleagues, and some of them might not be. Again, I use acting and directing and all that. I model in my spare time, and acting, the entertainment industry. But that's pretty much a side gig now, but I digress. The character of Albert Wesker is what made Resident Evil, and to kill him off in Resident Evil 5 and to do him dirty like that was really like, this is not a good look for the franchise. And really, after the video game Resident Evil 5, once Resident Evil 6 came out, remember, as a kid wanting to be an artist at the time, like, I was obsessed with the creature design. They were so unique, authentic, and you just wanted to know more about the T-virus. You wanted to know more about mutation, genetics. Like, bro, I went really deep into franchises like this. It also had to do with because I pretty much had a non-existent youth due to past trauma and shit. But again, I digress. But the Resident Evil franchise always had a very, special place in not just my childhood. Like, bro, I shouldn't probably be saying this, but I have passwords named after favorite Resident Evil characters. So that's how much of an impact it had left on, my upbringing. Which lets me get to the idea of how to make a good Resident Evil movie. Which, going about it, I would go like this. For those of you who don't know the depth of how far the Resident Evil franchise goes. Remember, Las Plagas was a parasite basically revived and reanimated using remnants of both the T and the G virus. The more powerful ones had a lot more remnants of the G virus because the G virus was basically the T virus on steroids. If you were injected with the G virus, you just kept on mutating. Alright, hence William Burgon. However, the Las Plagas pretty much mutated under the aspect of the queen. Alright? Because with all these parasites that are activating like a sort of hive mind, they would always need a queen. And it's pretty much made with the Lord Sadler, who basically had the queen parasite host, which is the final boss. Very sick shit. I loved it. I loved it. And so Resident Evil made such a profound part of not just storytelling, but the Resident Evil franchise by itself. I figured, like, why don't we take it back there? What if the Las Plagas wasn't completely gone, eliminated? Because we both know with Ouroboros, it was basically the progenitor, T virus, and Las Plagas pretty much all in one. And Wesker tried to mix that up to make himself into, pretty much Friedrich Nietzsche's Ubermensch. Alright? He kind of had like that complex by only the more powerful should be allowed to survive. And it's always just very alluring to me. But what if the Las Plagas didn't completely disappear? What if there were still remnants from not even the fossils, but even some of the original? And this is where it gets interesting, because you kind of like get the concept of the Thing. Remember the the Thing, the 1980, what was it, 1981, with Kurt Russell in there, and Keith David and the whole other cast. Think about that with the Las Plagas and where it could go between a desolate village like Spain and a place like Alaska, for example, where you kind of have that feel, you kind of have that vibe. I think hardcore Resident Evil fans will know where I'm going with this. And so that would have been my idea. And pretty much thinking about whether the story would be canon or not. Whether or not I would have the story told in complete the Resident Evil setting, or do like Paul W.S. Anderson did and pretty much not try to completely deviate, but not try to copy paste. I'm still trying to figure out whether to make it canon or not. But however, pretty much I wanted an all Latin cast, seeing as the movie takes place in a desolate village somewhere in Spain. And, having all these guys pretty much speak Spanish. I thought it would be a perfect idea to have pretty much an all Latin cast. And, I was thinking about having Michael Pena in there, who a lot of different Latin people from all parts of the, Latin American and Spanish culture. Think about having Michael Pena in there as a cop. And, we all know the villain from Bad Boys 2. I thought he'd be amazing in there as well. As, believe it or not, the brother of the Lewis. Still trying to figure out what the fuck really happened with him. We all know what happened to him, but, he never heard from that guy again. He was helping some Americans, so he basically just has a lot of problem with Americans and America interfering and pretty much creating viral outbreaks to to get other people involved in shit that they really shouldn't be involved with. So he really has a personal vendetta. You know, he played the Cuban guy, Johnny Tapia, who was also in Riddick playing the villain. Yeah, he was really good. I would love to see him, and of course, Benicio del Toro. I would love to see that guy in a Resident Evil movie. So these are like the three characters I have in there, and I would have. I was thinking about putting myself in there, but since I don't really want to do that anymore, I figured like I'd have a character that kind of resembles me, trying to be the head honcho of this entire operation, and a girl who's a CIA operative who is a blonde European girl, whose name shall not be told, but I figured I'd have her in there. Not for the sake of strong female character or to have be everyone's eye candy slash humor like in the Riddick movies, but I really did feel like a woman like that could have a strong place in the type of story I was trying to tell. And having a villain who resembles like the Las Plagas, you know, Los Iluminados, and, you know, the entire cult surrounding the Las Plagas, have them return. Not exactly the way as in Resident Evil 4. Like I said, I don't want to just copy and paste fucking everything about the game, what made the game great, and put it in there, but really have them be known to be there. And this is an idea I had stuck in my head for quite a long time right now. Oh yeah, and I forgot, like, I want to have Danny Trejo be there somehow, also being the ensemble cast. How the fuck did I forget about him? This is what happens when you don't write shit down. So yeah, I'm thinking about Will Smith for some reason. Oh, yeah, write shit down. So that would have been like my ensemble cast. So you have like Danny Trejo, Benicio del Toro. You have the villain from Bad Boys 2, and Michael Pena, a character that looks like me, and a blonde girl. That's pretty much the squad, if you will. And believe it or not, they're able people. So they make it for the first 35 or so minutes of the movie pretty much unscathed. And it's not really their physical wounds. They don't get infected. By the way, I wanted to make a movie that's somewhere between 2.5 to 3 hour, 11 minutes long. So that's like the Resident Evil I had in mind. I might have had to make this a 2-part, but there's really a lot you can tell with a story like this and with a franchise like that. So like the first 30 minutes is just pretty much them getting into the shit, not heavily, but making their way, kind of getting to know each other, because they're a team of people who had a lot to do, not with Raccoon City and the T-Virus, but everything that came after. Because when Resident Evil 3 happened, and Resident Evil 4, there was some time. And it's not until Resident Evil 5 that you get to know, ever since Raccoon City, viruses were pretty much created, bioorganic weapons were made everywhere. So that would be like, there's a lot of happened. There's a lot of people that could have been affected. And especially with the side games like Umbrella Chronicles and Darkside Chronicles, there was a lot of like itty bits that kind of let you know, like, after between Raccoon City, Resident Evil 3, between Raccoon City blowing up and Resident Evil 4 happening, there was a lot that happened during that time, and that could have affected a certain amount of people in certain parts of the globe during that certain amount of time. And the story would take place after Resident Evil 4. So between the events of Resident Evil 4 and somewhere after Resident Evil 5, because Wesker will get mentioned within those 35 minutes as well, contemplating that whether or not he's really dead or not, because believe it or not, there's still some hype and debate around that. And the beauty of not really copy pasting everything about the game or trying to make it 100% canon is you can get to play around with that. Kind of like with Blade Runner, like was the main character a robot or not, or like the philosophy behind like pre-crime, like in Minority Report, like is it, where I'm going with this, because I'm talking to an audience that loves the material and loves movies, so I'm not gonna talk to you like you're stupid or anything. But anyhow, in Resident Evil, Wesker will get mentioned, and a lot of the events of 5 and little bits of the game will get mentioned there. So, and you'll probably wonder, like, who would be the villain in all of this? After watching Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, I figured, like, we ought to have Guillermo del Toro somewhere in the middle. Like, I wanted to make him a researcher, but I didn't necessarily want him to make him the villain or the hero, if you know what I'm saying. Like, he's a researcher, he's like biochemist, and pretty much fart again. Great. And he pretty much does what he does. Really, why all people really play God is because he could. Yes, he willingly helped to, in this particular storyline at least, to bring the Las Plagas and Los Iluminados back to their former glory, if you will. But is it really because he wanted to? And I kind of want to create a story that, for the most part, that remains a question to be answered. And I want to do that kind of with all the characters. Like, throughout, I don't want to get too much in the flashbacks, and I know how general movie audiences, including myself, have reacted to flashbacks in the past. I really don't want to make them big, but let everyone know that kind of every single character you're rooting for, and probably some that you're probably not going to be rooting for, have their own personal moment of loss during all this pandemic of the T-virus and what it did, not just before, but probably even after Raccoon City and all that happened throughout. And this is the part where, I really question, like, okay, should I make this 100% canon or should I not? Because that's the beauty that Paul W.S. Anderson did with the franchise, that for better or for worse, made me enjoy the franchise a lot more, because there was always this what if. Like, what if things had gone a lot differently? Because I always found it strange in the video games that pretty much the effects of Raccoon City didn't have a lot of a lasting effect. If you know, like, if you had a zombie outbreak and the only way to solve it was to nuke a city in the middle of the US, that would have been like 9/11 or some shit, right? You would remember that for a long time. And I always found it weird with the games that it almost replied that, yeah, it did have a lasting effect, but more so on a personal than on a grand scale. And even though all the main characters and even some of the villains, if you will, they might have had some personal stake in this, but there's a larger scar that got left behind that they're all dealing with differently and in their own personal way. Like one of the characters got like a anger issue. The guy's got one other guy's got a drinking, the other one drugs, and the other one cuts herself to cope with some of the nightmarish experiences that have been left behind. So that's on a philosophical level that I want to take the franchise, or the movie at least, which I wanted to call Revenge of the Las Plagas. Taking kind of somewhere similar to Spain, and I feel like I have not played, to be honest, after Resident Evil 6, I haven't been able to do that per se, play the other games, but Resident Evil 8 and Resident Evil 4 in terms of, atmospheric tone were pretty similar in my own personal opinion, so I definitely wanted to take it there for the first, at least somewhere within the first hour of that franchise. Of that movie, sorry. I wanted to take it there. And yeah, it's so that's where I want to take the heroes of that journey. Now let's talk about the villains. I've already mentioned Guillermo del Toro's character, which shall remain nameless for now, but he's a biochemist researcher who's pretty much in this part of the story, he's responsible for trying to make the La Plaga strain even stronger by not only doing what was done before, but even take some of the elements of the other games whereby, the virus is, we've seen that in real life, that a virus is just constantly evolves and just constantly, mutates into various different and sometimes even more powerful strains. So it's a very interesting places that we can take that storyline to. And so I definitely wanted to play around with that Guillermo del Toro's character, you'll even find out that, and that's also one of the reasons why we question, hey, is Wesker alive? Because he uses a strain of the progenitor virus, which was the virus pretty much used during the Wesker Children program right before the T virus. And there's a label on it where you will find it later on in the movie, somewhere between 2 hours, 15 minutes or so, where it will say Wesker. But it just says Wesker. You'll never, you see a dot and then Wesker, but you never see a letter that could pretend okay, which Wesker? Because Albert was not the only Wesker out there. So there are a lot of the Wesker children. Some of them survived, and who knows? Maybe you got a strain from one of them that didn't survive, but still held the DNA of the T virus. The progenitor virus. Or he got some from a live Wesker. Maybe one that is or isn't, could or could not be dead. So we want to kind of leave that mystery open. But hey, this is the pitch, right? So then, of course, you have the Los Iluminados. And there, of course, consists of a clan of, I wanted to say 5 villains, whereby we've already named Guillermo as kind of somewhere in the middle, kind of like the merchant, who I'm deciding if or if not he'll make a return. But it's kind of fun to have him in there, so he probably will. Although I could not wrap my head around yet for what. But you got a set of 5 villains in there, and a lot of them pretty much I got from the Narcos series. At least 3. I wanted the main guy to be... He was the Brazilian Portuguese actor. I kind of forgot his name, but I feel like you guys know who I'm talking about in this setting. He was the guy sitting at the barber shop and just started spraying everybody. The one with the mustache. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. I've been out of movies for a while during my travels and other things that I'm doing, so it's been pretty much um, a wild ride in that consensus. And yeah, so a lot of them I got from there. I also wanted the female cult leader. Sofia Vergara would probably do well as one of the female cult leaders, although I have had other Latin women in mind. Salma Hayek could do a good job, and the one who played Zorro's love interest in the yeah, I forgot her name. Like, I've been out of the movie industry for a while now, but yeah, I thought she could do a pretty much job as one of the female cult leaders, and she has like one of those new strains of the virus that Guillermo del Toro's character is experimenting with, and Benicio del Toro's character has a personal vendetta with her because yeah, they had an intimate relationship, not the kind whereby it's a happy memory. And this was before she got infected with that particular virus and mutated her. So they go way back. Again, in not such a good manner. And yeah. So we've got three right there. And then I've got two others. One being a European white scientist as well, who, of course, the blonde girl from the squad, the hero squad, I'm just going to call him that now, has a personal vendetta with as well, because they were partners at one point for the greater good, and one of them was a field person, the other one was more of like a scientist. And yeah, things were different, they grew apart, and you kind of find out, again, no spoilers, but like she got into that basically to she got in there basically to find and kill him, because after finding out the truth of who her longtime friend became, especially after the traumatic event they witnessed at the hands of the T virus, it was fucked up, and that will start going on in, and you won't find out until very much later that their ties are stronger than what the movie initially puts out. And of course, after the first like hour of the movie, you find out like, hey, this shit, like the La Plaga and Los Iluminados, like they have been trying to build back stronger since the events of Resident Evil 4. Because, like, again, the movie, canon or not canon, you don't find out after, like, the events of beginning of the events of Resident Evil 6. You kind of found out that the Las Plagas, after the first, like, somewhere between the hour or so of the movie, you find out, hey, like the La Plaga never really died. Killing the queen didn't do shit, because the queen was replicated. That is not the original queen. The original queen is hiding somewhere. And the queen also has a king. So I'm not going to say who inhabits the king parasite, but the king, as in most hive mind communities of animals, king doesn't do much without a queen. Even when you look at lions, Yeah, the lion may be the leader, but he does absolutely jack shit in comparison to the female lions. And bees kind of, and certain parasites often operate in that same manner. So the king has power, but not as much power as, of course, the queen. Now it's a mystery who inhabits that king strain of the DNA. And you kind of, throughout the movie, you find out which one inhabits this particular strain. And a few of the characters contemplate, well, shouldn't we fight fire with fire? But this doesn't happen until like way later on, whereby my character pretty much says, because you kind of find out through everyone experiencing this, the character that I was going to be portraying in that story, he lost more than all of them combined, really, and he has a personal vendetta. Ex-army official, and this guy is pretty much hoping to die throughout the majority of the movies. Like, he's been so distraught by everything that happened before and since then, and that can go into a lot of directions, but I'll keep those safe for now, in the safe. But he lost more than anything, so when the opportunity is presented by Guillermo del Toro's character, which you never know whether he's a villain or not, even in, when he did Hideo Kojima's project Death Stranding, like, even then was always a mystery, like, okay, is this guy really here to help me, or is he just pretty much waving the gun around and see who likes to play Russian roulette with their genetic makeup? And so when the opportunity presents itself, because, like, remember, he has the La Plaga strain, he's got Ouroboros, he's got the G virus, he's got the T virus, and remnants of the progenitor virus. So it's pretty much, for anyone who wants to use it, a pick and choose game. And here's where I'm going to end that particular pitch for now. But I will tell you, a lot of these characters have their own personal reasons for not wanting to do it, and a lot of people to use. And this is where I gotta say, I've gotta think of The Boys when I have this pitch now in my head, because when the opportunity presents itself by Vought, okay, yeah, you can inject this and you have superpowers for 24 hours, but that's not the case in Resident Evil when it comes to these viruses. Like, once you inject them, that's it. There ain't no going back. There is no 24 hours. So you really gotta contemplate whether or not you want to inject that shit into your system, because there's no going back once you do. And you can tie it into what's happening now, with vaccinations and, the medical world that's existing right now, the overuse of supplements in the fitness industry. Like, you can take it any direction you want to. And that's where I think the beauty of this really shines. And of course, Albert Wesker. Is he alive or isn't he? Is he kind of still running things? Because kind of like the Darth Vader of video gaming, like, nobody knew who Darth Vader really was. And no one really knew who Albert Wesker was. In Resident Evil 5, I think they did his character kind of an injustice. And the reason I don't want to say it's 100% canon, because who knows if he's still alive or not? Who knows if secretly, after pretty much a public defeat, if you will, on the hands of, the heroes that he knew personally, He's like, okay, maybe I was a little bit too egotistic. Okay, maybe I was so caught up in my God complex that I really did not think things through. He was always obsessed with power, but had I let it go so far that I actually lose the thing that gave me the most power, is that a lot of people didn't know my motives, didn't know my next phase of my plan, didn't know my moves ahead of time because I stepped behind long enough to plan them. And that is really one concept that I think hasn't been explored enough. And again, you can tie that into real life as well. Like, okay, how much do you want to be put out there? How much do you of yourself are you willing to go out there? Because nothing is private, nothing is secretive. Whether it's technology or biochemistry or your strain of DNA, freedoms that we're giving away, and cloning, genetic mutation, stem cells, bruh, you can go so far as to altering yourself in so many different ways. And that's, I think, kind of the beauty of the franchise that really, and whether it be the movie or games, often wasn't explored enough. It was really eluded by a lot of creature design and a lot of the set design. But yeah, that's kind of where I want to end the pitch, really, because from there I want the rest of the story to be kind of a mystery. But I think an all Latin cast for this movie, Resident Evil Revenge of the Las Plagas, I think that would be good. And yeah, where it kind of ties in with Alaska, and that's all I'm going to say for now, is really that, okay, Alaska is where, kind of like going back to The Thing, and that was one of my favorite movies growing up, and essentially they kind of took a lot of inspiration from that as well with Resident Evil 4, so I think it's good to kind of head back there and really, and have a character like Vertugo. For those of you who don't know, is the giant guy who, with the long beard and all that. Kind of have a character like that kind of make a comeback as well, but not really have a part of the large villainous cast, kind of like Mr. T in the other Resident Evil franchises. But yeah, that would pretty much be my pitch for a Resident Evil movie. In the sense that I've been in love with the franchise for a long time. I really didn't find the Resident Evil movies as bad as they all made them out to be. Like I said, until Extinction, it was a pretty good, solid take, original take, if you will, on the Resident Evil franchise. And yeah, again, I wouldn't copy paste everything off the game, but I wouldn't try to deviate as far from the franchise whereby, you wouldn't recognize Resident Evil anymore. However, I did make sure that none of the original characters of the game and the movie would return, but that they would be referenced somewhere here and there, either by somebody talking about them or being referenced in another form, if you know what I mean, visually speaking. So, yeah, that's pretty much how I would do a Resident Evil movie. That's how I would do it. What do you guys think? Gamers, hardcore Resident Evil fans, non-hardcore Resident Evil fans, what would you think of a movie like that? Comment below, give your honest opinion, although I do say, hey, keep it respectful, because, it's coming from a fan here, it's not like I'm just a guy that's like, hey, like with the Netflix series, like it has absolutely jack shit to do with the series. And again, I'm not hating. I am excited to see the series and see where they go, but coming from experience, that last Resident Evil movie as well, yeah, we can do better. And that's the reason why I put my pitch out there for, the fans. Because, like, hey, I want to do better. What do you guys think of a movie like that? Comment below and subscribe if you want to hear more movie take ideas. And there will be a lot more news of movies in there as well. And a lot of talks about this. Because, yeah, I've seen some shit. And believe it or not, I might know some shit. So, hey, guys, it's been real. Peace out. Ciao.